Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 36 of the Ripper Podcast.
Look, I'm not saying you should play college football till you're 28 years old, but it does make for an entertaining story and a good quarterback.
Let's get this thing started. How we doing, y'all? Welcome to episode 49 of the Ripper Podcast. I am Ethan Rosensteel. Thanks for joining me. Happy Monday. Thanks for getting your week started with us. Hope your day was splendid and just like the rest of the week. We're getting into that fall spirit. A lot of fall activities happening. Haunted houses, pumpkin patches. Halloween's right around the corner. Super excited. One thing right around the corner for us is our 50th episode of the Ripper Podcast, something I'm super excited about. I truly cannot wait. That's going to be Wednesday, same time, same place, same everything. As you can tell, we're testing out Instagram Live, so that's something new. So thanks to those of you who are tuning in on Instagram currently, and then obviously Facebook and YouTube is where we're at as well currently. So super excited to get this episode 50 rolling, working on some new merchandise arrivals, which would feature a sale for our 50th anniversary or 50th episode, kind of a little bit of a celebration for that. So we're just super excited for it. 50, halfway to 100. Austin and I were talking about it on the last episode, how kind of far it's came. And Austin and I working on a lot of really cool things for the future, especially into 2025. So I'm just super excited. A year from now, I'm excited to be able to look back and see where we were right now and be able to see the progress that we've made to that point. So I'm pumped for it. We got a lot to get to today. We're going to start with some sports headlines. The regular season of high school football is in the past. We're going to recap week 9. Our World Series is set, so we'll take a peek at that. Our hockey segment is this week, additionally, with the daily draft, college football. Elson will be joining the show for their football. Part of the episode, he'll be doing his draft risers and fallers, and then we will recap the games of the weekend in the NFL and preview. We have 2 week 2 Monday Night Football games. Sorry, I'm distracted. My hat bill is a little crooked. Can't tell if that's the glare or not. Anyways, let's keep on rolling into today's sports headlines. A lot of NFL news, couple injuries to get to. Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson is officially confirmed that he's tore his Achilles. A lot of people kind of saw that in the video. You could kind of see it snap, which was just disgusting. Kind of seems like a karma situation. Who knows? Maybe not, but it seems like karma's kind of catching up to him. The question about the whole entire situation, though, is did he play his last snap of football for the Browns? And or did he play his last NFL snap? It is assuming that if he's not playing for the Browns, the likelihood of him playing somewhere else is probably slim. Within his contract, there was something, and we're going to get to some of these NFL headlines with Elson in a little bit. But within his contract, there was something in regards to if he were to get prosecuted in any of the legal issues that he did have, there would be like an opt-out in the contract for the Browns, which would allow them to get out of the money. Obviously, from a football standpoint, Deshaun Watson is making a lot more money than what his performance is providing on the field. And so obviously he has those off the field issues as well. So injury, obviously a torn Achilles is going to be out for this year, the rest of this year, possibly a decent chunk next year. And so we'll see. We'll see what this offseason holds with the rest of the season. Jameis Winston's on the roster. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was the replacement for him. So it'll be interesting to see where Deshaun Watson, where his career goes. 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. He's torn his ACL. Possibly a little bit of karma on that. His whole stink about his contract that he put up. The holdout, that type of a thing, seems to maybe caught up to him. I don't know if you believe in that stuff. Braxton Berrios, also a guy who tore his ACL a weekend. A couple big injuries. I believe in the Sunday Night Football game, there was an offensive lineman who was carted off the field and was like a back neck injury type thing. They brought him to a local hospital. He had feeling. It's one of those situations. I don't remember his name, but I believe that was so kind of a lot of injuries in the past week over the weekend for the NFL. A couple of trade things to look back though. Amari Cooper, good week for him. 4 receptions, 66 yards, and a tud. With his new Bills team. Davante Adams on the other side, though, only 3 catches for 30 yards. That is the lowest amount of yards Davante Adams has with Aaron Rodgers since like 2017, which is crazy. Davante Adams, that hype didn't quite live up to it. I think it was kind of doomed from the first play when Davante Adams dropped the first pass to him. But kind of interesting there. Drake May, he's continuing to strive. A couple of good weeks for football for him. In the basketball world, we'll talk about this on Wednesday during our basketball segment. The New York Liberty got a big win in the WNBA for the WNBA title over the Minnesota Lynx. A little bit of officiating question marks from Minnesota, their head coach, but the Liberty get the job done. And they win the WNBA title. How about that? In high school football, which will get us a nice little transition into Week 9 recap. 6 area schools made the WIAA playoffs in their respective divisions. But let's get to some of the Week 9 games around the area. Two area schools, Darlington and Belleville. Interconference matchup. Both playoff teams. Darlington got the job done 35-7. We'll be previewing the entire playoffs next week, or on our Wednesday segment. We'll be previewing the playoffs, some of those games, possibly making some picks, things like that. But Darlington got the 2 seed. They'll be taking on familiar foe number 7 Richland Center. Belleville, number 8 seed, will be taking on the number 1 seed Cambridge. So Belleville's going to have their hands full with the 1 seed in round 1. What a game it was between Blackhawk Warren and Potosi Cassville. Always, this is a playoff game. This a lot of implications in this one. Potosi did get the job done 27-18 over Blackhawk Warren. Ironically, both of these teams actually play each other this week in round 1 of the playoffs. 3v6. Potosi got the 3 seed. Blackhawk got the 6 seed. So we got a rematch. Back-to-back weeks playing the same exact team. A game that is kind of almost turned into a rivalry between the two because of all the implications that it's had. And it's kind of intriguing that we get to watch that game 2 weeks in a row. So it'll be a fun one there. Broadhead Judah couldn't quite get the job done against Richland Center, 56-28. Broadhead Judah did not make the playoffs. Same with Pike Argyle. Their loss against River Ridge, 56-8. Evansville got the job done against a struggling Whitewater team, 41-0. Evansville is going to be taking on Rock Valley Conference opponent Edgerton in a 3v6 matchup, which isn't interesting. But the 3v6 between Edgerton and Evansville. And New Glarus, 36-20 over River Valley. Homecoming for the Knights. They got a 6 seed and will be taking on the 3 seed Milwaukee School of Science, which I can't say I am familiar with. Monroe, 56-0 over East Troy. Very dominant win for them. They ended up getting a 2 seed. Monroe did, and will be taking on Elkhorn Area, who was a 7 seed. So kind of some weird seeding in this one. Something to note. Mount Horeb kicked Monroe's butt, if you would. Week 2 of the regular season. Mount Horeb is in D3. Monroe got moved up to D2. They're both 2 seeds. So, in my opinion, the better team is the 2 seed in a lower division. That doesn't quite make sense to me. Interesting stat there. But there you go. So we'll be talking about the playoffs, all the seeding coming up on Wednesday during episode 50. So make sure you tune into that. MLB playoffs. The World Series is set. Yankees and Dodgers. How about that? Yankees and Dodgers. Talking about last year's World Series, a couple of smaller market teams, Rangers, Diamondbacks. I guess the Rangers might be a little bit more, a little bigger, but the Diamondbacks, smaller market team. We have quite literally the two largest markets in baseball, maybe even America sports in general. Yankees, Dodgers, obviously Shohei Ohtani headlines the Dodgers, Mookie Betts, a lot of really talented players for the Dodgers. Yankees, on the other hand, though, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, a lot of talented players on both sides. Obviously, both franchises have the money to pay the roster, and so both of these teams ready to go. This is gonna be a fun one. I will say this is two large markets, both that are going to draw lots of viewers. It's going to probably be one of the highest viewed World Series in a long time. I'll be interested to see that. But this is going to be a fun one. Two pretty good teams. It was kind of a chalk playoff, if you would, in that regard, about how two teams that a lot of people would probably choose ended up with the in the World Series playing each other. So MLB playoffs. We'll be continuing to track and talk about the World Series as it goes about, but we're nearing the end of the long MLB season, and just like that, it'll be starting in just a couple months. So we'll be following the World Series. Yankees, Dodgers in this one. If you're not fans of either of these teams, you hate them, but two very, very big fan bases in this one, 100%. Let's get to our little stick and puck segment presented by Rosie's Hockey Wax. Just in time, actually, for hockey season's right around the corner. Use code podcast for your 10% off your order for some Rosie's Hockey Wax on the Ripper website. Make sure you grab some of that. We'll start with the local team, the Chicago Blackhawks. They come into our episode today 2-3-1, 5 points. A couple recent games. Saturday they played the Sabres, lost to them 2-4. And Thursday before that, they played the Sharks, got a win 4-2. A couple upcoming games between now and next week. Tomorrow, they play the Canucks, a team with 6 points, pretty comparable to the Hawks. Friday, they play the winless Nashville Predators. Who knows if they will be winless by the time they show up and play Chicago. Then they go on the road to the Stars, and they'll have their hands full with the Stars, as the Stars are 5-1, 10 points coming into this one. Kind of an interesting thing among the rest of the NHL. The NHL Frenzy tomorrow night happens like once a year. All 32 teams are playing. It is NHL's version of NFL Red Zone, but it's across the ESPN networks, I believe. They kind of tune in to all the goals, the big moments, but all 32 teams are playing 16 games. It's kind of a fun thing. I didn't watch it last year. I believe last year was the first time. But I do anticipate watching it this year. I think it's an interesting idea, something that they're obviously testing out to see what they can do. And I think it's intriguing. I'm excited to see what it's all about. I'll report back. But I anticipate you guys to tune in as well. But the NHL Frenzy on ESPN tomorrow night, and that'll be a fun one to see what that's all about. Question mark around the NHL. Some teams underwhelming to start the season. Obviously, it's a long season. And these teams have quite a ways and quite a bit of time to get their season back squared away. But the Colorado Avalanche 2-4 on the year, like we talked about. The Predators are winless, 0-5. Edmonton Oilers, who are a good team, made a playoff run. They're 2-4, and the San Jose Sharks 0-4-2. Obviously, a team had the one first overall pick this past season. So they're in a slightly rebuild situation, but a team with plenty of hope in their winless through the first 6 games. So a couple teams to keep your eye on as you see if they can turn around their seasons, but not off to the best starts so far through 5-6 games here in the NHL season as we roll into the Halloween season. But Elson Gratz is gonna join us here. Daily Draft College football. Elson's going to have his draft risers and fallers, and then we'll get into some NFL. Let's welcome the man, the myth, the legend. There he is, Elson Gratz. Thanks for joining us. Gratzy, I don't know if it's my computer or not, but I don't have audio from you. Gratzy, can you say something now? I don't know if it's me or not. This is a weird situation. Very ironic. I know you can
What
hear
about
me.
now?
I got you loud and clear now.
Here
Gratzy,
we
what's
go.
up?
Here we go.
What was this? What was the situation? Something not plugged in?
I'm going to say it's on your end.
Okay. Who knows? I mean, it very well could be. But Gratzy, how's Tulsa been?
I definitely didn't have my computer muted. That wasn't it. Tulsa's great. It's homecoming this week. Got the banner hung up on the library. Going to be having a huge bonfire soon. Should be a really exciting week. We've got the Texas San Antonio Roadrunners coming to town. They sit at 3-4, Tulsa at 2-5. So it'd be nice to get a big homecoming win. This is my Monday night debut. Let's make it a good one.
Yeah, Elson normally only tunes in to our Monday, or I should say Wednesday episodes for the entire time, but he's joining the Monday episode as much as he can and seeing if he can chat some football with us. But let's get started with our daily draft. This segment's back. Elson, last time I checked, we tied. We tied last week. I'm gonna get a little update, and we're still tied. So there you go. We are still tied. So it's not a loss in either of our category. So it's a good thing for both of us. But today we're going to be talking. I will admit, though, part of the issue I believe with having a tie is I just posted it today. I realized I never posted it, so I posted it this morning. And so probably not a whole lot of time for voters to get their votes in. But a tie is a tie in this one. So I'm 1-0-1. Elson is 0-1-1. We're splitting 50-50 on the percentages. But this week, best college football uniforms. How about that? This is going to be an interesting one. I'm excited to. I think a little. I don't know what the best word to call this, but a warning or a rule, I guess, was we'll be picking the overall team, not a specific uniform from a team. I think just the overall team's package. If that's fair to you,
I think it's better that way. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Instead of picking a specific uniform from a team, let's do that. Elson, you got that trusty coin handy?
Let me grab one.
Okay.
It's going to be a nickel this time. You want heads or tails?
I'm going to go tails this time, although I think I've won on heads twice now.
You are 2-2, I believe, or 2-4-2.
Mm-hmm.
I put way too much air under that. It is heads. You called tails, correct?
Yeah, I tried changing it up and it didn't work for me. So
the coin flip was a little off my frame, so I had to branch out to catch it. Thought I grabbed it, ended up with the bolt from one of my cabinets in my hand. So we don't talk about that, but it got me the win.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Like you said, Elson, first overall pick. I'm intrigued to see where you go with this one.
Man, out of all the daily drafts we've done so far, this is the first one where it's like, I don't think there's a clear front runner. Maybe this is going to be unpopular, but I'm going to take Auburn.
Auburn, that's interesting. I will admit that Auburn was not on my list. I know Ryan would be very happy with you with his Tigers, obviously not having a good year. But he'd be intrigued with that pick. I think I'm going to go a team that seems to wear a different uniform every single day. I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks. So, Elson, question to you, though. Is it Oregon or Oregon? Because I seem to have this debate over the weekend.
Oregon is the little town in Wisconsin. Oregon is the state.
I 100% agree. See, I agree with you. But then there's the argument that it is spelled the same. So there is no difference.
The Oregon Ducks.
The Oregon Ducks.
No
and
way.
I also think it depends
way.
on the West Coast accent is Oregon. And the Midwest Central accent is Oregon. That's my.
I like Oregon for the school out west.
Yes, I agree. You and I on the same page. So I'm going to take them. I think they've got some pretty interesting packages of uniforms. I'm gonna go into the traditional category and a little bit of tradition. Give me the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think those gold helmets are just unmatched.
They were definitely on my list. And you went with the fun Oregon Ducks. I agree. It does feel like they're trotting out different unis every week. I'm going to match that energy with Boise State. I know we're not grabbing the stadium with it, but I don't know. The fun blue and orange, they have a nice alternate jersey this year on the blue turf. Hard to beat. And then for my second pick, I'm thinking University of Miami, of Florida, of course. So I'll also kind of go the iconic route.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's a solid pick for sure. With my last two picks, I'm going to continue to admit that not one of your teams has been on my list so far. So I'm getting my top four choices, which I'm very happy with. But I will say that I have nine schools written down. I couldn't decide between 8 and 9, so I wrote 9 of them down. Any one of these could be 1, 2, 3, or 4, and so on. So who knows? And who knows what the voters are going to say about it? But I'm going to take Ole Miss and Ohio State. I think Ole Miss has a couple different uniforms that are intriguing to me. I think Ole Miss, their baby blue uniforms and the different helmet combinations that they have, I enjoy those. And then Ohio State, I really do enjoy the gray and red combination. One thing that I kind of noticed in high school football, or not high school, but college and NFL football over the weekend is I hate when teams on the road wear their white jerseys with like a light gray pant. Just wear the all whites at that point. It looks so much better. But I like the all gray uniform from Ohio State, the all black. They have an all red, obviously the all white. They have a lot of different combinations. I really enjoy it. So I'm going to take the Ole Miss Rebels and the Ohio State Buckeyes.
When some of these old powerhouses branch out and they start rocking the brighter uniforms and then some of the new blackouts, I don't know. I don't mind it. I think it looks pretty sharp. Now,
Yep.
you've left me with a tough choice here. I think I'm going to go LSU. I think it's a hard classic aesthetic to beat. I was tempted to go UCLA, but we'll go Louisiana State.
There you go. So LSU is Elson's final pick. Mr. Irrelevant in that one. A couple honorable mentions that were on my list. I really love the Carolina Blue from North Carolina. I think those are very good. Tennessee, another team that rolls out plenty of packages with different color schemes: the grays, the blacks, the oranges, the whites. Army, I think Army. Obviously, the Army Navy game uniforms are always splendid. But I think Army is very fitting for their culture. Obviously, for the Army, like those. And then I think Michigan's a hard uniform to say is bad when you just consider the tradition in that too. So I enjoy that one. So I went Oregon, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Ohio State. Elson went Auburn, Boise State, Florida, or I should say Miami, Florida, and LSU. So there you go. I'm gonna try and remember to post these soon tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, and hopefully we can get some fair voting on this one, so we don't have another tie. Elson, good draft as always. Let's get into some college football. Week 8 in the books. In this one, let's start with the local team, the Wisconsin Badgers, down there at Lake Michigan, quite literally on Lake Michigan. I think some of the players, coaches ended up in Lake Michigan after the game. Not sure if you saw those clips. They got the job done against the Northwestern Wildcats, I believe, 23-6. Kind of a high school feeling stadium. And that's kind of the vibe I was getting. A lot of people thought this was an opportunity for the Badgers to get another blowout. I think the defense played outstanding in this game. Offense struggled a little bit, but Notre Dame or Northwestern still a 500 team. Elson, what did you see in this game?
Like you touched on, a lot of people thought this one might be another 30, 35 point type of blowout, and we didn't light up the scoreboard, but that's because it felt like we didn't need to. I mean, the Badgers felt like they were in control the entire game. They did exactly what they needed to do, got the ball to Towie, didn't make Braden Locke drop back to pass too much, and the defense was just outstanding. Tight coverage all over the field, which has been a little bit of an issue for the Badgers. And every third down, it felt like they were getting pressure. It was just suffocating. They were in control the whole way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think suffocating is a very good word for it. There was not a moment where you felt like the Badgers were playing from behind. I believe they had a couple blocked field goals, a safety, obviously allowing only 6 points. Wisconsin defense was just in pure domination in this one, and it was a good win for the Badgers. Another Big Ten game, classic Big Ten game, number 16, Indiana with a massive blowout against Nebraska, 56-7. I do believe Indiana lost their quarterback in this game. It might be out the next week, Elson, but what do we see from the Hoosiers?
Well, first of all, Curtis Rourke is legit. This offense is clicking. Let me check on whether or not he got hurt, because that would be tragic. He's having an awesome season. Ruled out indefinitely with a thumb injury, so that's going to be rough for them. That's going to make it much harder for them to stay undefeated for the rest of the season. But ultimately, Nebraska's defense just didn't show up. Some people might be trying to poke holes in what Dylan Raiola did, and it's really challenging when you go out there and you ask your true freshman quarterback, who's been excellent this season, to throw the ball 43 times and try and keep your team competitive in a shootout like this. He threw 3 interceptions. They just put way too much on his shoulders. Huge win for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I agree. I think this Nebraska team is kind of more on the rise than hitting their peak. I think Matt Rule is rebuilding that program to what it was in historically, and I think Indiana is a team where is also kind of, I would say they're doing both. They're hitting their peak because they kind of came out of nowhere this year. Obviously, Kurt Cignetti, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's doing a great job with the Hoosiers. Obviously, their quarterback playing at a high level. Good teams will find a way to win without their quarterback, and so we'll see if the Hoosiers. I'm not 100% sure who they got next week, so it'll be interesting to see who they're going to be going up against, see if their defense can continue to roll. I mean, this is an Indiana team that was playing complementary football, both sides of the ball executing. They're a good-looking squad. A lot of people have them on their top 10s going into next week, so I'll have to take a look and see where they fall in mine. A lot of movement this week in college football. Iowa State in a close one against an underrated UCF team, 38-35. Elson, the Cyclones stay undefeated.
This game was so much fun. It was just both teams throwing absolute haymakers. A little bit of a rough day through the air for Iowa State starting quarterback Rocco Becht. He's going to be a gunslinger. He will put the ball up through 2 picks. Ultimately, UCF just couldn't stop him on the ground. Rocco Becht scored twice with his legs. But on the other end, R.J. Harvey for UCF. I'm going to take a little bit of a victory lap. He was kind of a sleeper pick at the running back position for me. He's dealt with some injuries, had to work his way up the depth chart, and he has emerged at UCF this year. Really fun, athletic player. Ultimately, Iowa State gets it done. They're definitely the better team, but they're undefeated right now. You wish they didn't play them that close.
Yeah. I think UCF, though, is an underrated team. I think that they're a team that's outside of my top 25, but a team that I watch every week to see how close they can get to cracking that. Obviously, a couple losses this year. But Arkansas transfer KJ Jefferson leads the way at quarterback for that team. They're good. They're a good squad, and I think a lot of people, they go under people's radar a little bit, but Iowa State gets the job done. They continue to roll. Another shootout offensive domination game for the Hurricanes, not the Cyclones. Miami gets the job done over Louisville, 52-45. It seems like one of those teams that's just going to try and outscore the opponent. There's no defense involved. But Miami, Cam Ward, they continue as well to stay undefeated.
Cardiac Canes going to cardiac Canes, I think is how I would summarize this game. It shouldn't have been this close. Miami secondary has to figure out how to stop somebody. They've given up 34, 38, and 45 in the last 3, and it's really hard to win a college football title doing that. But, man, Cam Ward is fun. We're going to talk about him later. And on the other end at Louisville, Tyler Shough, which, by the way, is spelled Shough, which that should not be pronounced Shuck. I don't know how you should pronounce it, but it's definitely not that. He's kind of a prospect again. He was hot a couple of years back. This year he's got 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I think he's in his 7th year of college football, but this was another really fun game.
Yeah, high-scoring game in that one. Another fun game, Alabama-Tennessee. This one always seems to live up to the hype. Tennessee gets the job done. We haven't seen Alabama with 2 losses in quite some time. Tennessee 24 over Bama 17.
This game was just a freaking mess. We knew we were going to see something. When you've got Alabama, who's had their ups and downs, and Tennessee, who's had their ups and downs, ultimately Tennessee plays the slightly cleaner game. 26 overall penalties, 3 missed field goals, and 5 turnovers. Tennessee got the ground game established, is what won it for him. Kind of a disappointing performance from Jalen Milroe. Bama has a negative 3-point differential over their last 4. Just a strange game where I thought both teams looked pretty okay, and Tennessee was a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, just one of those SEC games, one that was played at 2:30. That is normally a prime time, kind of turned into that rivalry game in the classic SEC, but just a tight game. Like you said, a bit of a disappointing performance from Jalen Milroe. Obviously, not exactly what Kalen DeBoer. I mean, they were so high after that Georgia game, and then they lose 2 games now, and they're kind of back down. Reality hits you hard sometimes, and they're humbled. But I think this is a team. Obviously, the 12-team playoff, they're going to be probably just fine. SEC championship might not be in their cards, but who knows? I don't think there's going to be an undefeated team in college football this year, so a 2-loss team might be able to sneak in, especially in the SEC in that tight competitive league. But always a fun one. Back to the Big Ten, Illinois domination against obviously a pretty struggling Michigan team, 21-7. What'd you see in this one, Elson?
Ethan, I know we chatted about this a little bit off the show, but are your Saturdays open? Like, would you consider taking a ride over to the University of Michigan to maybe play quarterback for them? Because Jack Tuttle was awful in this one. 3 turnovers. I mean, if you're open to it, I would maybe say send in the high school tape. They got Jaden Davis, true freshman, on the bench. He's one of their 4 or 5 quarterbacks that hasn't gotten the starting nod yet. Maybe we see him. And what's frustrating about this is a good Illinois offense. The Wolverines defense did their job, but man, Michigan could not move the ball in this one.
Quite disappointing Michigan offense. I think also if I sent my tape in, they might only, and I would say I'm a mediocre at best at that level of handing the ball off. But I think that might be all I'm good for. I don't know if I could even complete a screen pass at that level. I think the closing speed would be too much at the big house. But Illinois domination over Michigan. The inconsistent quarterback play, we talked about this last week, not only for Michigan, but other teams as well. Just not getting the job done for the Wolverines. On the other side, a team that's kind of on the rise on the flip side from Michigan. But Illinois on the rise. Brett Bielema's got this team going. They got a quarterback that can play. This is a team that has faced a little adversity in the past couple of weeks, losing some tough games, but they get the job done. They look good doing it with those crazy, funky-looking uniforms, Elson. What do you think about those?
They were a choice. We'll say that.
I mean, 2 hours per helmet. That's pure dedication. There you go. Illinois gets the job done. They're going to be probably rising up those top 25 rankings, while Michigan going to be falling. I don't think you'll see a number next to their name, maybe for some time. But Elson, if you're Sherrone Moore, head coach for the Wolverines, are you looking at another quarterback potential starter, or are you going to be riding, maybe going back to one of the previous quarterbacks? What's your move?
Ah, man, this is why I didn't think that they should have benched Alex Orji, because what this team wants to do is run. That is how they're going to move the football, and Jack Tuttle isn't going to change the numbers in the box like Orji can. Now, you can't really throw the ball with Orji, but you can't do it with Tuttle either. And when you go back to a player, I think that really does a lot to mess with the locker room. It's almost like you're admitting that you made a personnel mistake. I think it's Jaden Davis time. Like I said before, that is their true freshman quarterback. I think he was a high 4-star recruit. I mean, at this point, you're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks.
I agree. I think it'd be intriguing to be able to watch him. You know, there is an issue when you say, going back to a guy. I think Alex Orji is their best option. I think that the game plan fits into his hands. What they want to do, run the football with their, they got a couple guys in the backfield who can run the ball. And I think when you have Orji who can run the ball, throw when you have to, I don't see that as an issue. But, out of all the people it would be intriguing. I think at this point, a couple losses under your belt now, a season that's kind of in question, just kind of fighting to win a bowl game or get to a bowl game at this point, it wouldn't be horrible. You might find something this year that can help you in the next few years with a young freshman quarterback. Obviously, they know a lot more than you and I do about that guy. Maybe he's, too undersized. He's going to get hurt if he gets hit once or, something in that regard. But in my opinion, Alex Orji was their best bet. They won the big game against USC. That was really kind of their only quality win so far. He was their quarterback during that, so I think he fits the game plan to what they want to do, which is running the football. And I think he has their best chance to win. But obviously, they know more than us. The nightcap in this one, Georgia taking on Texas, college game day. All the stars were at this one. Texas got their job done. I don't know if I call it a get back because Texas didn't necessarily do anything to them, but they got a revenge against the Alabama. And Texas lost their first game. So Georgia 30, Texas 15. Allison, what'd you see in this one?
I think this one between two really fundamentally good football teams was just messier than we were expecting. 7 total turnovers. Texas was 3 for 20 combined on 3rd and 4th down conversions. And we talked earlier on the preview show last week about how this is Quinn Ewers' big moment. This is the NFL tape. And he was really terrible almost in this game. 3 turnovers, could have had a couple more if the Georgia defensive backs caught everything that hit him in the hands. And he was temporarily benched in this one as well. He's still their starter, but they pulled him for a series and put in Arch Manning, who I believe immediately lost a fumble. Ultimately, Georgia's line just got a little more pressure. This wasn't an outstanding day for the Bulldogs offense, but they got a little bit of a ground game going. They got Trevor Etienne, handed him the ball 19 times, 87 yards and 3 scores. And with Texas struggling to move the ball a little bit, that's all it took.
Yeah, this is a pure Georgia domination game. Texas really did struggle in this one. Obviously, like you mentioned, Quinn Ewers was taken out of this game, not for injury, for poor performance. I think this is the current day college football. I don't think that there is going to be that number 1 team in the country that remains at the top the entire year, goes undefeated, and wins the national championship. There's going to be this kind of carousel where Alabama beats Georgia, but then Georgia beats Texas, but Texas beats Alabama, and then Tennessee beats Alabama, and Tennessee beats Texas. And it's just this whole thing that's going to create this big mess and a puzzle of a 12-team playoff. And so I think this is just one of those games that feeds into it. I think the SEC is a big part of that. Big Ten probably right there with them. There's talks about forming an agreement of some sort to feature a couple non-conference games a year between teams to can sort of create a super league. And so it's going to be between these two conferences. You might get some hint of a ACC, Big 12, obviously with the one non-Power 5 conference winner that makes the playoffs. But this is the new day college football that we're all here for. I think it creates great parity. I think it creates good matchups. And like I said, I don't think there's going to be a team who ends up undefeated at year's end. I mean, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose in every game, and I think every team's going to end the season with a loss. And Texas lost their one. I don't know if they lose again, to be honest. This is a good Texas team. And they came in. Also, we did talk about this though. Remind me, who did Texas play the week before? It was a team that Oklahoma.
Yes,
it was a team Oklahoma.
Got a big win.
It was a big win, and we talked about that coming into the game. I've personally learned here this year about the importance of the week after a big game. And the question was with this Texas team of whether or not they came into this game unscathed. Were they healthy? Were they fueled? Were they energized? Or were they dwindled? Were they kind of living on the edge of their seat, just kind of getting by after that game? It was a blowout, so a lot of people probably thought that they were 100%. But how energized, how full is the battery of this team? And I think it kind of caught up to them in this one. This was one of those games. F1 was in town. College Game Day was in town. This is one of those games where celebrities showed, alumni showed. Maybe the hype got to Texas. There's a multitude of issues that could have resulted in a Texas loss. But I think the thing that you can just point at the most right now is the new present day college football and just seeing how that whole system works, how teams beat teams who have beat other teams. It's just a big cycle. It's like the cycle of life, but in college football, Elson.
And I like it, man. I like the continual changing of the number 1 overall team. I think it's more fun than just seeing Alabama at the top for 12 weeks.
I agree. And I think it provides teams like Indiana or even Iowa State opportunities, BYU, teams, even Miami, a team that we haven't seen for a while, be good. They're getting their opportunity to be successful, and I'm here for it. Loving the new present day college football. I'll send a lot of these guys though going to the NFL soon, come this spring. It's been a while since we've got your always fun risers and fallers, but here we go. Give it to us. What do you got?
I'm glad to be back to it. First of all, you can't ignore Miami quarterback Cam Ward anymore. Coming into the year, we knew that he had all the physical tools, great arm, knows how to make all the throws, excellent athlete. The issue with him is just too many turnovers, throwing the ball to the defense, putting it on the ground way too often. And he hasn't been perfect this year, but in this quarterback class, I don't know that he needs to be QB1 because all of the arm talent is still there. 3 straight weeks, he's put the Hurricanes on his back. He's cut down on the turnover-worthy plays just enough. Really exciting player. And then Harold Fannin Jr., tight end from Bowling Green. And I know what you're thinking. Why are we talking about players from Bowling Green on this podcast? But man, Harold Fannin is just kind of a different beast. He leads all tight ends in yardage right now with 873 yards, coming off of 171 on 10 catches versus Kent State. He's literally one of the most efficient receivers, not just tight ends, but receivers in all of college football. Now, the caveat is he weighs 230, 235 pounds. That's not big enough to play in line yet, but he's a young player. Maybe you get him with NFL strength and conditioning coaches. He can put on another 12 pounds. He blocks really hard at the level of competition that he's at. You could be hearing this guy's name called on day one. I certainly wouldn't rule that out. Moving to the other side of the ball, edge rusher, outside linebacker, James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. This is a player a lot of people were excited about coming into the year. Some people even thought he could be the number 1 overall pick in this draft. Elite athlete, elite recruit. Got off to a little bit of a slow start, but 9 pressures and 2 sacks against Alabama. If he keeps having days like that, this is a player you're going to hear called in the top 10. He's just got to show it a little more consistently. Then a linebacker, Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma. This is a wide open linebacker class. When I look at it, there's not a clear guy who I say, this is round 1 pick. This is linebacker number 1. It's wide open, and Danny Stutzman could be that guy. 14 tackles, 8 stops. A stop is any play that's a failure for the offense, like 3rd and 5, you tackle running back 3 yards short. That counts as a stop, even if it's not a TFL. He was all over the field against South Carolina. Very exciting player there. And then Kobe Bryant, not the Hall of Fame basketball player, maybe a Hall of Fame cornerback. He was intriguing coming into the year. There were a wide range of opinions on this player from Kansas because he's small. I think he weighs somewhere in the neighborhood of 165, 170, and he's a gambler. You can catch him out of position. But man, when it pays off like it did against Houston, 3 picks and a pass breakup, his coverage has looked a lot tighter this season. Very exciting type of player. You could see his name called on day 2, or heck, could even be day 1. And then Fallers, I hate to take a victory lap on this one because he's having a very strong season, but how can you not fade Quinn Ewers a little bit after how he played? I've had my doubts about Ewers in big games, and sometimes he shows up. I'm not going to take all that away from him, but he didn't get it done against Georgia. Took 5 sacks, a pick, lost a fumble, got benched, like we talked about. Just wasn't making good decisions. My big criticism on Ewers heading into the year is I don't know how much of his good production is scheme and how much is him. And I don't know, that performance just makes me a little uncomfortable. Could still be QB1 if he really tightens it up down the stretch this season, but that's his NFL tape, and it certainly sets him back a little bit. And then we got to talk about Donovan Edwards from Michigan. We talked about how this season for Michigan isn't going exactly the way that they hoped it was going to go, and it's been nice that we've seen Khalil Mullings emerge, who he's the running back 1 now. He's got to be ahead of Donovan Edwards in terms of draft stock because a lot of people were excited about Edwards coming into the year thinking he was going to have the backfield to himself, and ultimately he did to start the season, and then he lost it. He lost a fumble against Illinois that was costly, put him behind the chains in that game and gave Illinois some good field position. This isn't the version of Donovan Edwards that we want to see, but this is the fun part of the college football season. We're seeing guys in big games, and I'm always a lot more interested to look at the risers than the fallers. It feels like new players showing up every single week.
Yeah, I think this is obviously always an exciting list I get to listen to, learn a lot about certain players. Quinn Ewers is a guy who we like you said, it's kind of hard not to see him fall. A couple bad weeks. I mean, he was looking like QB1 after his performance against Michigan. Then kind of a shaky one this past week against Georgia. Donovan Edwards, a guy who has seamlessly been in the NFL or in the league for a long time. A guy obviously came back, always kind of been masked by Blake Corum, especially through the national championship. Danny Stutzman is a guy who I've grown to love. I love the personality, who he is. I think he looked good in the navy and silver for the Dallas Cowboys. Would you say Cam Ward is QB1 in your draft stock so far?
Carson Beck hasn't had the season that we're looking for. Connor Wigman is still interesting, but he's had some good weeks. He's had some bad weeks. Don't know that he's going to come out this year. I'd have to say so. I mean, Cam Ward has the ceiling. The one guy I would also put in that conversation is Jalen Milroe. They both have very good physical traits, just need some stuff to clean up. But we're seeing more of that development from Cam Ward than we are from Milroe. So, yeah, I think I would go that far right now.
Is this one of those years where we see like, just it's one of those years where we see maybe a couple quarterbacks crack the day one draft? Or is this a year where you think one of these guys could potentially rise and become like that first overall pick?
I think it's possible we see a QB number 1 overall pick. And I don't mean to be a downer, but from what I'm gathering, this doesn't feel like a class that has that really elite type of prospect regardless, like a Marvin Harrison or a Joe Alt. So we could see the positional value of a quarterback just carry a guy like Cam Ward that far up the board. But in terms of pure talent, I hate to say it, but this is looking kind of like the Kenny Pickett class. I think there are a couple guys you can get a little more excited about because they got the mobility, they got the big arms, but I'm not seeing a clear plug-and-play quarterback in the college ranks right now.
Yeah, honestly, the Kenny Pickett was a class that I was kind of thinking about in terms of like maybe you get a quarterback or two to crack, the first round. Or is it turned into one of those? It's definitely not one of those years like last year where we have a multitude of quarterbacks that clear cut for the most part as that first overall guy, and then you got a couple top 5, maybe top 10, and then you got maybe a mid round guy. It's not one of those years for sure. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think you're hitting it right on the head. Always good stuff, Alson. Let's get into a little NFL, a little Week 7 recap, and then we got 2 Monday Night Football games coming up tonight. Going to be interesting. First ever ESPN Plus exclusive game. Something to keep an eye on there. But let's start with the local team, Green Bay Packers. They got the job done. Jordan Love unlocked his inner Aaron Rodgers with that game-winning drive over the Texans. New kicker in town, got the job done, 24-22, Wilson.
The Packers defense is what really stuck out to me in this one. One of the things we talked about in the preview is C.J. Stroud's not going to turn the ball over, and he didn't. Didn't give the Packers short fields, but we saw enough from the offense, got a good ground game established. Jordan Love made some throws, and they were just taking away all of Stroud's easy buttons. The secondary was great. One of the best games we've seen from the linebacking core, got some pass rush. This was the most complete defensive performance of the year from Green Bay. And then the new kicker seals the deal, which you love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Green Bay, a team where it kind of seemed like the defense did unlock kind of a next level potentially. Offensively, they ran the ball. Jordan Love, a couple turnovers, but he kind of settled in there for a bit, got the job done. But the final drive looked good. A couple of those throws though for Love, it's just like he threw that deep ball to the end zone. It was like a jump ball between the defender and the receiver. It's just like we don't need to be doing that. We're right on the edge of field goal range. Time is not that type of a situation. So it kind of seems like he still has a couple of those moments, but he's progressing, and I think that's a good look for the Packers. Defense held a Texans offense that is very good. Obviously couldn't stop the run. That was probably the biggest knock. Joe Mixon kind of had a day against them, but guy like Stephon Diggs and C.J. Stroud, they held them guys in check.
I like what you talked about with Jordan Love. I'm really interested to see where this goes a couple seasons down the road, because I'm thinking of Love as a second-year quarterback. That's what it feels like, even though he's, in his 5th year in the league, and he's still making some of those second-year quarterback decisions off the back foot into double coverage type of throws. And the awesome part is he's got the arm talent where sometimes he tries that throw between 2 guys and he threads the needle on the run off platform to the end zone, and it's a strike, and it's fun to watch, and it makes you say, look at the potential. He's just got to get a little bit more savvy, and I really hope we see that. Hope they keep working on his mechanics because the sky is the limit for Love.
It's almost like, as Packer fan, when you watch Jordan Love roll out of the pocket, you gain more confidence than when you see him just sit in the pocket and make a strike. It almost seems like when he's rolling to his right and he's got his eyes downfield and he's just looking to kind of take a shot, maybe in a scramble drill situation, it seems like there's almost more confidence there when he hits his third step in the pocket and trying to get someone the ball that probably doesn't deserve it.
I know what you mean. He thrives in the broken play situations where maybe instead of guys dropping back off the line and getting into the passing windows and you're looking at safety rotations, you get outside the pocket. Now it's scramble drill. You just got cornerbacks running with wide receivers. Find a guy with 2 yards of separation. He's going to hit that throw every time, it feels like.
Yeah, another game potentially in the game of the year conversation. Lions, Vikings. This was a game. NFC North obviously looking like that the dominant division in football, but the Lions get the job done with the late field goal, 31-29 in this game. What'd you see in this one?
I was really interested to see if we got a resounding game, like, oh, the Lions just go in and they punch the Vikings in the face and they win with the physicality, or maybe the Vikings expose the Lions team that's had a weak strength of schedule. No, we saw an even matchup. It was back and forth, big plays on both sides. And both quarterbacks were excellent. They both looked poised, accurate. Here's my question. Are we buying it with Sam Darnold?
It seems like Sam Darnold's kind of gotten worse as the weeks go on. He seems like he's doing the job. Obviously, to me, the most important quarterback stat is the team record. If your team's winning, to me, there's no question about your performance. He's been doing a good enough job to get the wins. He's not exactly putting up the flashy numbers, but he's playing in that system. And Kevin O'Connell's a mastermind when it comes to that offense, and I think he's getting the job done. I think at the beginning of the year when Sam Darnold's really striving, I think there was a question about whether or not Sam Darnold's the quarterback next year when J.J. McCarthy is an option. But I think as the year kind of progresses, and I think as the Vikings kind of start to get a couple more losses under their belt, we're going to see that question. That question mark will leave, and I think it'll become a period at the end of a statement stating that J.J. McCarthy will be the quarterback next year. But I think Sam Darnold's done a really good job. He stepped in. I think he's revived his career to a point where another team can give him a shot, and I think that they're in a fine shape. I think Sam Darnold. The question to me, though, for you, Elson, is Jared Goff your MVP
Of the league right now?
Yes.
Oh, man. No, not with what's going on in Baltimore. Baker Mayfield's having a really good season, but Jared Goff, what he's doing is so commendable. It feels like he can't throw an incomplete pass right now. He was like 18 for 18, and his first incompletion was just batted at the line. This was a fun matchup to watch heading into the game because of what Brian Flores has done with his Vikings defense and making it so tough on quarterbacks to find the correct throwing lanes. And Jared Goff just said, okay, I'm going to hang in the pocket. I'm going to get the ball out fast. I'm going to make the right reads. And he was surgical in this one. So Jared Goff has been awesome this season. He's really gotten better every game.
We haven't really seen a situation where incompletions are hard to come by. It seems like we're getting closer to that 50% completion percentage compared to the 100% that Jared Goff is living at right now. I mean, he's throwing maybe an incompletion or two a game, maybe 3. He's throwing the ball in the low 20s, high teens. Lions offense coordinator, I believe his name's Ben Johnson. He seems like he is a complete mastermind. Just plays with defenses. It just seems like when kids sit around and they write up flag football plays, and he's putting them into the NFL. He's doing a heck of a job for Detroit. This is an offense where they have more touchdowns than incompletions this year for Sam Darnold, or in the last 4 games, or excuse me, for Jared Goff. Or there's some sort of stat about that I saw. But this offense is rolling. Yeah, this offense is rolling. They're playing at such a high level that it seems like the Aiden Hutchinson injury doesn't necessarily impact the team's success. I think they're just kind of continuing to roll that next man up mentality that Dan Campbell instills. This is a Lions team that they could just simply outscore their opponent and not worry about playing defense, but they got a pretty gritty defense as well. They're a defense that will get the job done down the stretch. They got all the capabilities. To me, they're one of the best teams in the league.
And they're just so damn tough, too. They were down at one point in this game. Vikings had a chance to ice it. They come out with a defensive stop. And you touched on Ben Johnson and how well coordinated this offense is. They're just willing to do stuff that other teams won't. I think it was like 3rd and 7, and the Vikings come out in one of those looks where they have 3 down linemen, and then the linebackers over like both B gaps. And I was thinking, that's a pretty soft front. They might run the ball out of the gun. Sure enough, they just give it to Gibbs, finds a crease up the middle, and slashes for the first down. They can beat you in so many different ways.
I mean, they got a double whammy at running back. Then they got a speed guy, and then they got a guy who's going to run it right between the tackles. Both of them will actually run it right between the tackles, but they're a fun team to watch, no doubt about it. Seahawks win in good fashion over the Falcons 34-14.
This Atlanta team needs to figure it out. They are a weird offense, and here's the frustrating thing. They were a weird offense under Arthur Smith. I mean, every Kyle Pitts fantasy owner, they know that. And it feels like this team just hasn't found its footing. They don't use play action. Their running game is inefficient because they only run to the outside, and it's super predictable. There's just something missing with this offense, and they haven't unlocked the potential of their playmakers. As for the Seahawks, this is a reminder of what Geno Smith can do when he's got time in the pocket. He's done a lot to hide a bad offensive line this year. The Falcons just can't generate any pressure. They don't have the guys. He's got time to hang. Boom, it feels like he was firing it between the safeties every other play.
Geno is showing that he can still play ball, and I love it. He's sitting on my fantasy team in one of my leagues. He's actually playing so well that I play him over Dak, if that says anything. But yeah, Geno Smith showing that he can still play ball. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, I think he's proven that he can still too. But like you said, a shaky front seven for that Falcons team, struggling to stop a good team like the Seahawks. Seahawks are a team that might go on and win that division and make a run in the playoffs. Who knows?
Big game for Seattle to stop the slide, get back in the win column, get some of that momentum back.
Yeah, I agree. Chiefs, another good win against the 49ers. I don't even know if a good win is the way to say it. I feel like they're just not exactly getting to exceeding their expectations, but they continue to just find ways to get the job done. The only team remaining undefeated, but the 49ers continue to just get these tough losses that just have been adding up for them.
I don't know whether or not to be impressed by what the Chiefs are doing, because on one hand, they're winning ugly, but on the other hand, they lost Hollywood Brown headed into the season. They lost Rashee Rice. They're down Isaiah Pacheco. They lost Juju in this game. And so Andy Reid just finds answers. He says, okay, we can't force the ball downfield. We're going to come out with 3 tight ends every other play, and we're going to run the ball at you with Kareem Hunt, and we're going to trust Patrick Mahomes to make the right decisions and pick up 6 yards on 3rd and 5. And it just got the job done. And that's why I picked them to beat the 49ers heading into this week. As for the Niners, the 49 IRs are back. It feels like they're getting killed by the injury bug every single season. You mentioned at the beginning of the show, Brandon Ayuk with the torn ACL. Debo came down with a pregame illness or something in this one. I don't know. Maybe his stomach was in really bad shape. Tried to play through it and couldn't. That should give you an indication of how bad it was. And they didn't have Juwan Jennings. They're beat up on the offensive line. They're down Christian McCaffrey. They don't have playmakers anymore. And so this 49ers offense can only come up with so much. Good Chiefs defense. Chris Jones did his thing, wreaked havoc, and ultimately they were able to clamp up and get the job done. It feels like we're getting robbed of watching a really good 49ers team. And look, there's something to be said for just winning the games that are in front of you and having the right mentality to do that. But it's hard to expect them to beat the undefeated Chiefs when they're just out of guys.
Yeah. For the 49ers, this is a situation where you think they kind of speed up the recovery and in return time for Christian McCaffrey so they do have a guy? Or is it like, we're really struggling this year. The losses are adding up. Let's make sure Christian McCaffrey's healthy for the rest of his career and instead of risking a potential long-term injury. And they just kind of cut their ties. What kind of situation are they in? Is it too early to make that determination?
Man, they're 3-4. Backs against the wall a little bit. They're hurting for receiving options. I'm not saying that they should put Christian McCaffrey on the field if he's so hurt or if he's still hurt, but they need pass catchers bad. And so I do think that contributes to the timeline a little bit. If they were like 5-2 at this point in the season, you can play downhill for the rest of the year a little bit, get healthy in the playoffs. That's one thing, but this team needs to be winning games because they're not in a bad division either.
No, this is a good NFC where game or two, maybe just barely above 500, like that's probably not going to get the job done in the wild card situation. So they're going to have to find ways to win games soon. They can't exactly afford that midseason scuff that we're kind of seeing right now, and they do have to play the Dallas Cowboys coming up this next week. So who knows? They could end up 3-5.
Yeah, I would put a lot of faith in that. The 49 IRs versus, I haven't thought of a cute name for the injured Cowboys, but both teams just beat the crap right now, it feels like.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, no doubt about it. Last game of the recap, Jets, Steelers last night. Seemed like Aaron Rodgers and the Davante Adams show just did not exactly go according to plan. I don't know. I've heard some Packer fans still try to follow the Jets with Rodgers, but I don't know about you, but I think it was kind of comical.
Davante didn't fix all the problems. We'll say that. The offense still didn't look cohesive. Rodgers still far from his best football.
Yeah.
After they fired Saleh, it feels like the defense is just playing slower, playing with less gas. And on the Steelers end, this is a big game for them. They moved to 5-2. I don't know about you, but they don't feel like a 5-2 type of team to me. But maybe Russell Wilson to George Pickens is a thing. I mean, we know Russ likes to throw the deep ball, maybe a little bit more than Fields does. And this was a big win for the Steelers. If you're the Jets, where are you going with this season? Is this still a team that's in legitimate playoff contention?
It'd be kind of hard to say yes, I feel like. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers, and you got a star-studded lineup, a good defense, Hassan Reddick coming back. It seems like you got to continue to try. I believe there's some stat out there that says like any team that fires their head coach midseason doesn't make the playoffs. And so I foresee that to continue. My question to you is whether or not Aaron Rodgers, after a disappointing year, seems like he's going to have a career high in interceptions this year at this rate. Does he return next year? I mean, it seems like this year and rightfully so after an Achilles injury, it seems like he's quite aged coming into this year so far. He doesn't look like the same Aaron Rodgers that we knew before the Achilles injury. Is this something like he might walk away from at the end of this year after a disappointing finish?
Rodgers, always unpredictable. I think if he's got Davante, if he's got Garrett Wilson, still a strong defense, I think they take another crack at it, even if they don't make the playoffs this season. But you never know for sure. I don't want to say he looks checked out, but you don't traditionally see quarterbacks throw more interceptions as they age. Usually you see him reduce the bad decisions. We know how smart Aaron Rodgers is. We know how well he avoids turnovers. He got Davante. He's got his guy. He's got Lazard. At what point is it not miscommunications? When is it just bad decisions? He's got to step up his game. I'm at that point with the Jets. They need to start winning in a hurry behind this good defense.
It'll be interesting to see just if Rodgers does stick around and Adams is there, and it'd be interesting to see who the head coach is next year. Who does Rodgers want to have brought in? It'll be interesting to see.
Bring Mike McCarthy back.
There you go, because he'll probably be available at the end of the year, but who knows? We'll see. That could be funny. I mean, the scriptwriters would have their hands all over that one. A triple reunion in that situation, that's something else. Well, there's your recap.
I don't think he'll be heading out to New York, but Rodgers is a temperamental dude. Maybe his opinion's gone all the way back on Mike.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I wouldn't put it. There's no way of predicting a guy like Aaron Rodgers. There's no doubt about it. Let's get into a little Monday night preview. We got two games on the slate, and this one, Ravens-Bucks, seems like at this point kind of two leaders in each conference, which is kind of crazy to think about with the Buccaneers. Elson, you and I both picked the Ravens to win this one in our Sunday picks. Does your opinion change here as we approach kickoff?
I've still got Ravens. I think that the Bucks are definitely going to score some points offensively because this Baker Mayfield connection with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is shown to be a legit game after game. But looking at the matchups, I just don't know how the Bucks get a stop. Obviously, they will, we think, but I think the Ravens are going to have a field day offensively. The Buccaneers like to put a lot of guys in the box, but they don't really have the personnel, and even when they're stacking the box, they still get gashed on the ground quite a bit. The Ravens can hit you with the power behind Derrick Henry. Then they can hit you with Lamar Jackson in the ground game, and then they can go play action. But even if they get behind, Lamar's been an excellent drop-back passer this year. This Bucs defense needs turnovers, and Lamar hasn't had a turnover-worthy play in about 4 weeks. He is not throwing the ball to the defense, so I do have the Ravens.
Is this a potential Super Bowl preview?
It could be. I mean, I'm still not quite there with the Buccaneers. I don't think that their defense has shown enough. And I think when they play better defenses, kind of like we've seen with Cincinnati, if you don't have like a decisively good run game, if you don't have guys that can just win up front from single back, it feels like it places a little bit of a cap on your upside. Maybe they start to double Evans and Godwin, get lighter in the box, but I'm not going to rule out this Bucs team. They have been a ton of fun to watch this year.
Yeah.
They play good in big games. It certainly could be a Super Bowl preview.
Yeah, there you go. I think this will be a fun one. Couple 4-2 teams coming into it. Baker seems to be playing at the highest level of his career. Obviously, Lamar and the Ravens, Derrick Henry in town. This is a scary team to fight with. A lot of people saying this is the number one team in the NFL, but the Buccaneers trying to approach that. Anything can happen. We've learned that in the NFL. Monday Night Football, all eyes on this game. It'll be a fun one to watch. On the other side, a couple teams that, who knows? What do you want to say about either of these teams? 3-2 Chargers taking on the 2-4 Cardinals. This, I believe, is an ESPN Plus exclusive game, which I think if you're trying to find a way to watch it, I do believe if you watch the Peyton and Eli show on ESPN2, I believe they are watching both of those games, and they have 4 guests when they normally have 3. So there might be a way to be able to watch that game. Elson, what are you previewing in this one? Who's your pick to win it?
I hate to break it to the NFL or ESPN, but I'm not buying ESPN Plus for this game. No. There are worse matchups. For example, if we look ahead to next week, just like all of the bottom of the slate games, we've got some rough matchups next week, but these are 2 moderately interesting teams. I think the Chargers are good. They got a good ground game. They have a good offensive line. The defense is frisky, and Justin Herbert's starting to click a little bit, so maybe that adds another dimension to the offense. As for the Cardinals, they need to win shootouts. They need to win behind Kyler Murray and a good cast of playmakers, and it just hasn't been consistent enough because the defense is simply not good. I think the Chargers are going to get their way up front. They're going to win the battle in the trenches, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Kyler to make plays. Now, he might have a really good game, but I just have a lot more faith in the Harbaugh-led Chargers in this one.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this could be a potential shootout game like you're mentioning for the Cardinals, and obviously that would play into their favor. A couple injuries for the Chargers. Seems like they're another team that's always battling injury. Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh, seems like they're starting to get things clicking. A team that seems like they have a couple nobodies just kind of stepping up for them. Guys, though, like J.K. Dobbins, Lamb McConkey, they've been playing well. This is kind of an interesting team for the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh came into town, and he had a lot of financial burden to kind of deal with. Has to kind of get by with some of these underpaid players who are performing at a pretty high level for him. And it's purely coaching probably to get that out of him. But like you said, the Cardinals defense, there's not much there for him. Cardinals need to win in a shootout. I think there's potential in this one. This could be potentially a fun game to watch. And this could be one of those, though, that we kind of look back at, at year's end and kind of see and just realize the amount of implication this one has in a wild card situation between these 2 teams, because offensively, I think the Cardinals are better than their record. Their defense seems to be the one hindering them. And so both of these teams could get hot and find themselves in a wild card situation. Chargers and Cardinals probably, with the Seahawks and Chiefs leading both those divisions, they're probably not going to win them. But who knows? This is the current day NFL, and there's no way of predicting it as well. But going to be a fun one. I think I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I don't know on the whim.
I think this could be a sneaky good game. You got a really well-coached Chargers team, like you said, with not very household name players stepping up. They've been able to get some production out of Quentin Johnston, who was their first-round wide receiver.
Actually catching the ball.
They just got some guys playing fast. And then for the Cardinals, they're 2-4, but they have one of the hardest strengths of schedule in the NFL versus the Chargers, who have one of the easiest. We're going to learn a lot about both teams in this game, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. Going to be a fun one. 2 Monday Night Football games, one of them on ESPN Plus. Like I said, if you want to watch both of them, tune in Peyton and Eli. In my opinion, that's almost a better way of watching the football games anyways. As always, Elson, thanks for joining me today. That's all we got. Enjoy, NBA starts next week. We'll be talking about that on the Wednesday show. Episode 50. You got to tune into that one. Episode 50. Going to be a fun one. Plan is to have some new clothing arrivals with a sale potentially to celebrate, and obviously one of the best episodes yet of podcast. A lot of good stuff over the past weekend. A lot of good sports the rest of this week, and then Wednesday we'll preview the upcoming sports weekend. Elson Gratz, thanks for joining me.
Looking forward to episode 50.
Yeah, let's have some fun. I'm Ethan Rosenstiel. That's Elson Gratz. He's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Happy homecoming to Tulsa. And what's your mascot?
We are the Golden Hurricane, not the Golden Hurricanes, I learned. We are the Hurricane. Maybe that sets us apart from Miami, and we're getting a win this Saturday.
There you go. Heard it here first from the Elson Gratz. Thanks for joining us. Ripper Podcast, episode 49.
So this is where it